This is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
What's up, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. I'm your host, Alex Golden. Joining me today is my co-host, Michael J. Facci. Facci, how's the dad life going? Father's Day is coming up.
Father's Day is coming up. Actually, just got some screaming in the background. You can't hear it. We just ditched the pacifier for my 3-year-old. That is a milestone.
Wow.
Has not gone easy, but we're sticking to our guns. We're planting our feet. We're essentially, if this is the trade deadline, we're saying, hey, final offer, take it or leave it.
Yeah, that is something Fletcher is obsessed with, is his pacifier. Just constantly wants to have it at the house, but I will say at daycare, they do take it away from him. So it's like he kind of learns that, right? So it's fun. But no, I was going to say, we're kind of coming up here. It's a Tuesday evening as we're recording this. So if you're listening on Thursday, people might be like, stuff has happened since then. But pre-recording this on Tuesday, I was just thinking, last year, the best player on the losing team in the NBA Finals was number 0, Tyrese Halliburton. This year, the best player on the losing team was who? Number 1, Victor Wembanyama.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what I think might happen next year is the best player on the losing team is going to be number 2. And guess who wears number 2 and is the MVP of the league?
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Exactly. And who's going to beat him? I think the people that didn't beat him 2 years ago because of the injury.
I would love a rematch. That would be interesting. And, like we said before, the titles changing hands the last 8 years, new champion. It's time that the Pacers have their opportunity, have their moment in the sun. I've had some moments, I'll be honest, that I've thought about and said, there's no way that it could just be that's as close as we ever get. Because it was truly the most devastating ending, and we're not going to get fully into that again because we don't need to, uncover those wounds. But it's unfinished business, and I do think that Pacers now have that taste in their mouth of they need to get back, and that's what it's all about. That's what a lot of these questions have been about. How do we get back? How do we win a championship? And I think that when you have that mentality of championship or bust, that's kind of what it starts with. And I feel like the Pacers have that mentality.
Absolutely, Facci. Well, we're here to do part 4 of the mailbag today. So do you want to get things kicked off here with the first question?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. So question number 1 of the mailbag at @motionout_ said, should the Pacers trade back into the draft? And would Sergio De Larrea make sense?
Yeah.
Hopefully I pronounced that right.
Yeah. Sergio De Larrea makes some sense. 6'5", 175-pound point guard, shooting guard, played in the Euro League. It's very talented player. I think I've actually seen him mocked quite a bit in the early first round or late first round. Don't know if he'll be there in the early part of the second, but I definitely think that is an option for the Pacers because one thing you have to realize with this Pacers team, Foch, is they need cheap contracts because they're going to be very up against it financially no matter what they do. But I personally think that getting into the second round, there are some options there. I wrote an article on Tuesday afternoon that I highlighted how the Pacers could create more cap space to have the full mid-level exception, and I threw out this idea. I want to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Oh, what do you got?
I had them trading Jarris Walker to the Chicago Bulls via the traded player exception that they got from the Kevin Huerter deal at the trade deadline. So you're basically saying, here's the $8.4 million of Jarris. It's going into your books, and what the Pacers get back is pick 38 in the draft. Now, what this does is it opens up $16-ish million before the Pacers reach the first apron. And I'm laughing because when I write this article, so many people on Twitter and Facebook, when they're reading it, I know that I'm confusing them because it is very detailed stuff. And they're like, I wish Herb would just quit being cheap and just pay the tax. The Pacers are already a tax team.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand that. The Indiana Pacers are a luxury tax team as we're currently speaking. They're like $270,000 over the luxury tax. It's not much, but they're still over it. So by trading Walker to maybe have the full mid-level to go out there and get, like we mentioned before on this mailbag, Ayo Dosunmu, that the most you can get is like $15 million with like 90,000 added to the end of it. So what I'm trying to say is you include this pick, you can go out there and offer the full MLE plus sign somebody and still stay under that first apron threshold. I think that makes a lot of sense, and you're getting 2 players for the cost of 1.
I think it's all about what you do after that trade. Because if you trade Jarris and you essentially walk away with, like, the 38th overall pick and then some savings, and then that doesn't really work out, then you're like, "Oh, man." But if you strike and there's a player who's willing to sign for the MLE, and it's gonna take the full MLE, and you can get it done, then I think that's a really good move.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, it's all about that secondary move. So I think that for the Pacers to have that full mid-level exception unlocked would go a long way. And I know you're probably thinking, "Hey, well, couldn't so and so take a little bit of a pay cut?" Yeah, but then our offer isn't as competitive as others because other teams are gonna have the full mid-level. So I don't hate that deal at all. It's all just about, like, what you do with that secondary move, in my opinion.
And the last thing I will say on this too, like, just so everybody's aware, you do not have to use the full mid-level on one player on one contract. They could split that up between two
Mhm.
players and add to their depth. Like, we've talked about Chris Middleton. I'm not saying that's who I want, like, first, first on the board, but
Yeah.
if Chris Middleton is available for the vet minimum and you can get him with part
That's
of
a game
that
changer. Yeah.
MLE, and then you go out there and get another backup center like a Vucevic for like 4 or 5 million, you still have like $8 million you can play with there to go get a point guard. You can do different things with it. I think it makes some sense to do that, but at the same time, I don't want to just get rid of Jarris. And of course, you can
No,
trade
I agree.
players into a traded player exception as well, or excuse me, into the full. You can trade them to any mid-level exception you have,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
as long as they're not a second apron team. But I mean, it just or a first apron team. But it does make a lot of sense to open up more space
it
because
does.
now there are more players available to trade for. So
It definitely.
I like it a lot. I think there's a lot of ways to go here with this.
We've just also seen what people need to factor in is like, if the Pacers don't intend to pay someone, Miles Turner is really the only situation I could think of where someone walked, and I think they've learned from it. So, it's not to say that, hey, Jarris is gonna walk or anything, like, we're not at that point. He's not an unrestricted free agent, but I do feel like it was pretty evident if you were really paying attention that I don't think they were ever close to signing Benedict Mathurin, and it just seemed like you and I caught a lot of hate for it, but there was never a report saying, "Oh, the Pacers in Mathurin, they're getting close." Never, never. Buddy Hield was another guy that it was like, "Hey, they've had a long time to come up with an extension. Doesn't seem like they're gonna do it. Seems like they're pretty far apart. You gotta make the trade." There has not been one tweet, comment, anything of the sort saying that, "Hey, the Pacers and Jarris Walker are expected to get an extension done." Until we see anything like that, to me, it feels like he can very much be on the move if this team is that protective about their core seven. Then they're gonna be in a situation where there's only one or two real players that you could really move. And I just feel like right now Jarris would probably have a bit more of a market than like a Ben Shepherd, where it's like, hey, you're talking about a former lottery pick, a top seven pick, whatever you want, 7, 8, right in that range. Uh, that still is incredibly young. And there are teams that I think that will be appealing to.
All right, I got a trade idea here for you,
Oh, what do
Foch.
you got? I got
So
one, but I was gonna save it for later. But
okay, we'll just get to this real quick, and we can
okay.
talk about it in a minute. Jarris Walker to the Bulls, like I mentioned in the traded player exception. Ben Shepherd and a 2032 second round pick from Chicago going to the Thunder. Indiana gets Lou Dort and a
Oh wow.
2026 second.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so what's happening with the Thunder? What are the Thunder getting?
Ben Shepherd, and they're saving $12.7 million
Huh.
with the Lou Dort.
Wonder if that's enough for them.
Yeah.
They do need to save, but in one
Well,
quick
maybe
swoop,
Indiana includes their 2027 first round pick.
yeah, I would think they would need something. I think the Thunder
Yeah.
need more than that because like in one swoop they could just waive Isaiah Hartenstein, and all of a sudden financially they've cured a lot. Um,
I've heard that the Grizzlies could be a team for Hartenstein because they have this $28 million traded player exception.
the Grizzlies should very much be in a spot where they should be taking on contracts and trying to get rid of stuff like John Morant.
Yeah.
They should ship him out for whatever you can. You've already shipped out, Jaren Jackson, Jr. So it's like you should be a facilitator. So
Yeah.
I could see that. But yeah, for the Pacers, I think you need to include more for Lou Dort. And it's not to say that like I want to give up a first round pick for Lou Dort because at that point
Yeah.
it's like that really takes you out of the running for pretty much any other decent trade if you owe your 2027 to the Thunder, you owe your 2029 to the Clippers, then it becomes a lot harder.
Yeah, maybe you just do a swap of some sort, but still, like, you can, like, 27, like, I've heard the draft is just okay, like, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what the draft
Yeah, I
class
don't.
looks like, but I know this was, like, a question about Sergio De Larrea, and we've talked more about not Sergio De Larrea,
That's definitely true. Yeah.
but those ideas were just in my head from earlier today. I wanted to touch on it because I think it's interesting, but we do have 3 here in a row from Big P83, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of do them like rapid fire.
Yep.
So he wants to know which 2026 prospects have the Pacers interested in getting back into the draft. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, look, I'm not gonna act like I've been paying too much attention to the draft, given once the Pacers lost their pick. But I did do some research, in advance of this question. You might be familiar with him, but Henry Vassar,
Yeah.
7-foot center, junior out of North Carolina, averaged about 17 points and 9 boards, shot 43% from three. So hey, you get that stretch big where I feel like as a backup behind Zubats, I feel like that could be pretty appealing.
Yeah.
I
I'll
think
be
that
shocked if he's not a first-round pick.
but that's what I'm saying. I envision him being a late first round pick. I've seen in some ranges around 25 or so. So to
Yeah.
me, it's like, hey, when you're getting back into the draft, it wasn't specified first or second. I'm not like so in love with like trading for like a second round pick and actually having expectations because you look at your Cam Jones and you go, oh, all right, like, I don't know. I mean, Cam Jones, that's a top 40 pick right there.
Yeah.
So another name I had is Tyrus Reed Jr., 6'11" center out of UConn. He was a senior, so it's always a little bit harder to got to kind of squint when you look at those stats and say, can they translate or not? But average 15 points, 9 boards, about 2 blocks per game. So I would just say like those are. I'm more in the if you're going to trade into the draft, could you get a backup center, someone that you could develop a little bit over the course of like the next year or two?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to potentially target a center. I mean, I don't know how the draft's going to play out. One name I think could be interesting, even though they really don't need a power forward, is someone like a Joshua Jefferson, who's a little bit of an older player, more of like a point forward type of guy that played at Iowa State. So obviously some familiarity there for Tyrese. The darling that I like a lot, it'll be about 20 by the season when the season starts. That's Alan Graves from Santa Clara. Like he just put up ridiculous numbers this year. Now, a lot of people have said, like, he played at Santa Clara, like it was a little bit of a small litmus test and that kind of thing. So that's where I'm at with him. But yeah, I mean, Dalen Swain is another name that I've mentioned before. I've actually done a mock trade where he was like the 23rd pick in the draft, and that's what the Hawks have been rumored to be willing to trade that. So if Indiana could somehow get the 23rd pick from Atlanta for something, I don't know what it would take, but Dalen Swain makes sense. And you guys know Cameron Carr, someone else that I've talked about. He's kind of all over the board. It depends on how you feel about him. He is definitely small, but that 7'2" wingspan, 6'6" body, and the ability to shoot and get out in transition just really screams Indiana Pacers. But if you're looking at second-round picks, Foch, just real quick, from the players they've worked out, there's only 3 names that are ranked in the top 60, according to Sam Vecini on The Athletic, and that's Emmanuel Sharp, who is 33rd in his ranking.
Surprised because
A little high.
Yeah, a little high, a little high.
For a lot of, but I mean, on Tankathon, he's 39, so it's not like
So
it's that all over the
put
place.
him as a top 40 prospect for
Yeah,
sure.
Malik Brown, he had him 36th, and then Braden Smith 38th. I apologize, there's 4, and then Tamin Lipsey was 57th, right there at the end, and that's another smaller point guard from Iowa State. But they had 30 players in out of his top 100, 15 were ranked, 15 were unranked. So I thought that was interesting. A lot of guys probably looking at more, hey, could they play for the Boom?
Yeah, probably. And I think I'm never in love with the guys that are like kind of in that like bottom 50-ish. I always think of like the Isaiah Wongs type of players that you're like, I just don't see it. I think that right now the Pacers already have Taylor Peter on a 2-way, so I feel like, are you going to bring in someone?
But he's old. He's
Yeah,
old.
yeah. No, so I mean, you talking about
That's
Taylor Peter? Or
Yeah,
talking
Taylor.
about
I mean, he's like 24
Yeah.
years old when he was drafted.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah.
if they could find somebody that's like 21, 22, it might make
Oh,
more
of course.
sense.
It gives a little bit more of like, hey, you can have this guy in your system for a couple of years. So
Yeah,
yeah, I just feel like those are the type of players that you end up getting when you're in that like late, second round area. So
for sure.
okay. So yeah, those are the players that I brought up. But the next question from Big P83 said, "Would you rather trade for a pick than sell the farm for Trey Murphy?"
Actually, no, I would not. I want the proven commodity versus the mystery box of the pick, Foch, and that's the simple answer there. So, you're definitely going to have to give up a lot. I think Pacer Faithful put out a trade on Tuesday night. Was like, what would you think about this trade? And I just don't think it actually works legally because there is a rule where you can't stack minimum contracts together to make salary work. So there is a new rule in the CBA that doesn't allow that to happen. But if there's a way they can make a deal happen where you're not giving up a ton and just one of the core 7, I would do that.
Yeah, I think just to what you said, I'm right there with you in your point. Like it's like also night and day. Like sure, you trade a lot less for a pick, but where's the pick? I looked at the draft and it's like OKC has pick 17. The Hornets have 14 and 18.
Yeah.
The Spurs have pick 20. Those are all teams that pretty much have like multiple picks. But then like we've been down that road before with pick 17. That's TJ Leaf territory. I'm sorry, the man shouldn't have ruined pick 17, but he did. Pick 18. That's Goga. Like
There's always good players though that fall in the draft.
Absolutely.
And if you hit on it, like that's a great steal from a salary perspective.
It is. It is. And look, Andrew Nembhard could be had, in the beginning of the second round. But I also just look at like the Pacers' limited assets right now, and I'm just like, to trade for a first round pick in a good draft is not gonna be like real cheap. Like it's gonna cost something. It could cost a future first. And do you really want to then owe a future first when you're a team trying to win a championship? So to me, I'm right there with you. I'd rather trade for the proven commodity, given that we're already down a first round pick. I would rather preserve our assets for like one bigger move rather than hitting a single and then saying, man, we just don't have money to hit anything else at this point.
Yeah, I think honestly, like if you're looking to get back into the draft, you kind of have to look like the last 5 picks with Denver, Boston, Minnesota, Cleveland, and then Dallas has pick 30. Those 5 right there seem very gettable. And a lot of times, like when you see picks like that available, you could probably get them for multiple seconds just to try and help teams out that might be in a financial bind. There's always the argument like, why don't they want the player, right? That can be on a rookie contract that can help them out, but it's like they're not probably going to help them out at that point.
Yeah.
But if you're Indiana and you like somebody a lot and you're wanting to get somebody on a cheaper contract and at least kind of like replenish the youth movement here, Facci, it could make some sense. I think that, we know Minnesota is really up against it financially and they're wanting to make some splashy moves. Would they be willing to sell off 28 to maybe get a second round pick? I mean, it might have to be one of those things where you see like the Pacers did, what was it, like 4 years ago for Isaiah Jackson when it was like a massive trade and it was like a 6-team deal. They ended up having like pick 32 or 31, whatever. It was Isaiah Todd and they traded that to Washington to move up. So like if they could be like, hey, San Antonio, let's get involved in a deal like this and then try to move back into the first round, there could be something there that makes some sense.
This is where it's unfortunate the Pacers don't have their second round pick because they would have had like the 32nd overall pick, and that probably would have been a pretty sweet spot to be in where it's like, hey, you know what? We're just outside the first round, super cheap salary. We've hit on pretty much almost identical pick, from Nembhard being 31. So I feel like that would have been great. Or you could have done like, hey, what if we do pick 32 and Utah's 2027 second round pick to try and move up into the first round? Like that could have been a possibility because now maybe you're talking about pick 32 and say pick 34 next year, or whatever it may be. So that's like 2 top 35 picks to move up to, whatever it is, 25, 26, 27, something in that range. But I think I would rather just save my assets for a bigger move.
And just real quick, I'm just, it's in the back of my head, but you got to remember when the Pacers had 3 first-round picks, I believe it was, or they had like, it might have actually been, I don't remember what it was, but they had like.
It was 3 first-round picks.
It was 7, 26, 29, and then they had like 32 or something really high as well.
Yeah.
They're 35, 36, and they ended up trading that 29th overall pick to the Denver Nuggets, I think it was, and got a future, like the worst of OKC Denver, and they used that in the Siakam trade for 2024. So I just think when you see teams that have a lot of picks, there's ways they might want to get out of it. And so I'm looking at it seem like Memphis, right? Because they've got the 3rd overall pick, the 16th overall pick, and then you just mentioned it, pick 32. There's a way I think Indiana could get that 32nd pick. So
Yeah.
that's really enticing to me. And I think with, future seconds as well, the Pacers have quite a few future seconds that could be very enticing. I think they have one from Washington and Utah. So I just think maybe moving off of one of those for 2032, or for 32 in this draft would make some sense.
Yeah, you'd be surprised because that same draft that you're talking about, like, we knew the Pacers weren't going to bring in like 5 players.
No. And Memphis is loaded right now roster-wise. Like, they don't have a lot of space.
No. So that's why when you look at OKC, you look at those picks and you start to go, okay, well, OKC has like 3 first-round picks. They're not going to use all of them, but they will come up with something. They need maybe a cheap player or two, but they'll probably look to consolidate picks to maybe move up. That would be what I would imagine they would do, but also we'll see. I'm sure people will come calling for pick 17, but that also kind of leads into a little bit to Big P83's next question. You want to read that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think this one's pretty simple, but why not trade with Chicago for pick number 4 and 15? Or
So
4 or 15.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
4, not or. I'm not and, but or.
yes. So when I see that, pick 4 is off the table. I'm not trading.
Come
That would take a lot. A lot.
There's nothing they could trade to get 4, period.
It's just not happening. So the Pacers wanted a top 4 pick so bad. That's why they did those protections in that deal. It's not going to happen. Pick 15 though. Yeah, good. So when I think of pick 4, like I think if you're going to do anything involving pick 4, not only is it going to cost a lot, but you're probably also going to have to take back Patrick Williams' contract, which is an absolute no. That's disgusting. Yeah. So pick 15. Hear me out.
Okay.
What do you think of this? Would you do this? Jarris Walker, Micah Potter, 2 second-round picks for Jalen Smith and pick 15. Would you do that?
Yes, without even thinking about it.
I would absolutely do that for Chicago. Maybe they're like, nope, not happening.
There's no way Chicago does that.
I don't think they would either. But I would just I thought about it, and I'm just like, if this worked out, and you're getting now your backup center, you're getting pick 15. Like I'm like, that's a perfect scenario. But I just don't think Jarris has like pick 15 type of value right now. But I also do feel like he could kind of fit where for Chicago, you're a young team, not really doing much. If they did have the value, hey, that's their opportunity to get him signed. But yeah, I didn't think it'd be enough, but I didn't want to offer up like a future first round pick in that deal. I'm not that interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, 15 could be really good though. I mean, the thing is, like,
I agree. I would love to pick 15, but not at the expense of like a Jarris, a future first, like this. Like now that's a little too crazy.
I think if you want 15, you're gonna have to take back Patrick Williams' contract. Like that's just what I think. I mean, just because the draft picks, like nobody knows like the actual value, but like here I am with my proposed trade idea of trading Jarris for pick 38.
That's just kind of where you said that. I'm like, yeah.
Well, and it's funny because your eyes did kind of light up when I said Chicago, so I was like, oh,
yeah,
boy,
because I was like, probably on the same page here, and then it was like, no, you're talking 38, and I'm like, I don't know.
They're just in a rebuilding mode, right? So like they want like for them to get 2 picks in the top 15, like that's from the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah,
like just works out magically for them.
They already stole the Trailblazers coach, so
that's true too. Tiago Splitter, congratulations going to the. I'm glad he got a job because he should have got a job with
exactly
the cheap ownership in Toronto.
I imagine Chauncey Billups is not coming back. I would imagine, given his legal trouble, how cheap the Trailblazers are. I would have said, look, no one said it, but I just assume that's a shut door. But yeah, for Tiago Splitter, like the man deserved a job. Like you stepped in and got a team to play in. Like congrats.
Yeah, honestly, like it's a good thought process because I did something similar to that during the pre-draft. Yeah, like before we knew the pick was going to be gone, like, could the Pacers get like pick 18, 16 from Charlotte, things like that. Yeah. It's just really hard. And I mean, unless like Chicago just loves Jarris, I just don't think Jarris has done enough.
I don't think he has
in his 3-year career to do that. So let's move on to the next question here.
All right. So the next question, we have finished Big P83 and we are on to at KC Tweet 42. Said Chad Buchanan mentioned getting bigger on the wing. What do you think of Noah Clowney, Kel'el Ware, or Chris Cenac?
Chris Cenac. He's the center from Houston. So I would just say this, KC Tweet 42. When Buchanan's talking about the wing. He's looking at the 3 and the 4. And the names you mentioned are kind of more 4-5 players. So these really aren't the right names, in my opinion, to go after. Right now, I think when you're looking at what Chad was trying to say, it was, how do we replace Benedict Mathurin? How do we get a little bit more size there? Because they are a little bit smaller with Neesmith starting at the 3 as well. So the name that I'm going to throw out is a name I've thrown out multiple times. I just think the contract's really team-friendly, even though it's only a 1-year deal left. That's Derek Jones Jr. And there's been talks like, oh, they might want to go after Jaylen Brown and trade pick number 5 that the Pacers traded them to the Bucks. And it's like, can you imagine that pick going to Milwaukee and how sick that'll make the Pacer fans feel? But it's like, if they get Jaylen Brown and they want to keep Kawhi and Darius Garland, like, they're going to have to trade a lot of contracts. And so it's like, why would the Bucks want Derek Jones Jr.? Could the Pacers sweep in and get him there in like a 3-team deal? So I'm just throwing that out there. You get Jaylen Brown out of the East as well. But I just think Derek Jones Jr. is a name that I like for a wing player. We've talked about Najee Marshall as well. So I don't want to take all the names, but any other names you have?
Those are the 2 players that I'm definitely in agreement. Like, those make a lot of sense. Like, when I think of Kel'el Ware, like, Kel'el Ware might be a featured piece in a deal for Giannis. Like, Pacers ain't getting him. And Noah Clowney, I had that soft spot.
He's a clowny.
It's just, at this point, I'm out. Any sort of big that's shooting sub 40% from the field, I'm sketched out with. And I think for Noah Clowney, I just feel like he fell in the draft. In the end, he had a big opportunity in Brooklyn, hasn't been able to deliver on it. So I'm out. And Chris Cenac, I wasn't terribly familiar with, but I know he's obviously going to be in the draft. Talented freshman. I just don't know if the Pacers, without a draft pick, I feel like that's just a harder route to achieve. But a Najee Marshall, Derek Jones Jr., you know what you're getting out of them. They would be awesome additions to this Pacers bench.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Chris Cenac's more of like a stretch big that can throw down alley-oops, like talented big, can block shots, like obviously played at Houston, so they're known for their defense with Calvin Sampson. But he's been all over the board too, so I don't know if he'll go lottery, if he'll go top 20, if he'll go top 25, fall to 30, like who knows, but I'm assuming he's in that 15 to 25 range. So let's move on here to our last question from Meg Ogren. If Jarris Walker isn't the long-term answer at backup 3, how do the Pacers add more size and length? Well, I think we kind of answered that right there.
Yeah, I mean, look, for the size and length, I mean, Jarris has the length. He's got like a 7'2" wingspan, but like, he's not like slamming it down like Obi Toppin or like blocking shots left and right. So I think sometimes wingspans could be a little bit overrated. I think trade or free agency is definitely how you can go about it. I mean, the Pacers have, historically, that's where they've gotten a lot of their talent from. A lot of this Pacers roster is made up through trades. So I think you can go out and about of finding size and length, but size sometimes isn't everything. You look at a guy like Jay Huff, who's ridiculously tall. He can block shots, but sometimes there's more to be desired. So I think you just want to find who's the best fit. And for Jarris, I feel like there's a lot that he brings to the table, but you could probably find someone a little bit more proven or consistent right now.
Yeah, I think the trade market's going to be your best option for this. Like, we looked at the free agency market, and there's not a lot there.
A little scary.
Pretty much outside of Kelly Oubre Jr., you're not loving who's available at the wing spot, at the 3 spot. So it is interesting. Now, I will just close this out by saying that today, somebody commented on my Facebook post, and they said, because I was sharing the article about the trading Jarris to the Bulls deal, Foch, we'll kind of close it with this. They're like, I love being in this group, but I am absolutely tired of reading your articles where you're always having us trade Jarris. How do I block you so I don't have to see your stuff? And it made me laugh because I said, all you have to do is just scroll and not read it. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
It takes 5 seconds to scroll right past it, which is what 95% of people do. So I'm just saying, like, everybody thinks like we're picking on Jarris out to get Jarris. It's the same thing you mentioned with Mathurin earlier. Like, we're just reading the room, y'all. Like, this is exactly your best trade chip you have. Number one, because of the salary, because they don't want to break up the core 7, because of the age, and because of his unknown contract. And look, I think people are just sleeping a little bit on, does Jarris want to be here long term? Because do you think Jarris would rather go play with Chicago, where he could maybe start or get more minutes off the bench, or play with Indiana and play in a role where he's like the 8th, 9th, 10th man and then might get squeezed out of a playoff rotation because there's players they trust more than him? I'm just saying, and as somebody that wants their next contract, where would you rather go?
I'd rather go where the biggest opportunity is, and that could also lead to the next payday after that. So I think that for Jarris, it's like, yeah, I'm sure he does love Indiana, but like there's also that other part of you that's the business side of things. That's
Yeah.
just like, hey, where could I make the most money in this? And I think even for Mathurin, I mean, it was probably the same type of thing. Is like, hey, I want to go where I can make the most money, have a large role, large opportunity. Probably felt like I am probably viewed more as coming off the bench here,
Mhm.
and maybe that changes in Los Angeles. Maybe it doesn't. I don't really know, but I think for Jarris, it's just I think he's got this ceiling above his head right now in Indiana that maybe elsewhere that ceiling's a lot higher, and
Mm.
it totally could be, and he could end up being a great player somewhere else. But I just feel like it's hard for him to have that type of path here in Indiana. That's how I
Yeah,
see it.
I don't see it, especially with Aaron Nesmith being like the second longest guy contract wise on the roster. Like, it's just
And
very
even
hard for
for
me to envision.
Nesmith, though, even for Nesmith, there's still people out there saying, I don't know, Pacers got to bring in like a more legitimate three. Like it's
That's
like,
fair too.
so it's and we love Aaron Nesmith, and he's proven a lot more than Jarris. But it's like,
Ugh.
yeah, if you're not like a core member, yeah, you could definitely be traded. It could totally happen.
Facci, we owe Aaron Nesmith an apology because I think we both probably would regret if we listened back to our episode from Tuesday that we said that he probably would not be a starter on most playoff teams. I actually don't agree with us that we said that.
Most
Be-
championship teams,
I
I
don't
think,
know. There's always those. You always kind of have that fifth guy. I mean, that's
yeah,
kind of who he is. I think we were being a little bit unfair. Maybe we would like to have a little bit more if we can, but we're just being greedy, and I think we're just kind of being prisoners of the moment. But like, look at what he did last year,
all right,
just from a playoff standpoint. Like, very, very, very talented player. Maybe he's better served as like a super six man or whatever you want to call it. But I just felt like I don't want to say he can't be a starter on a championship level team because there's a lot of teams with how the new CBA is,
sure,
made teams kind of build their rosters. I felt like we were being a little bit
okay, hey,
not
look.
disrespectful, but maybe disrespectful to Aaron Nesmith.
All right, well then for that, I apologize because I do love me some Neesmith. I
I
really
mean, you
do.
don't have to apologize if you don't feel the way, but I definitely felt like I needed to. I was like, that was a little bit of a harsh take, a little bit of
Okay.
a
All right.
rough.
Well, hey, you know what? Look, I don't want to be sleeping on Neesmith. I think that I said before, I said he's an absolute essential glue guy that we've seen what this team's like without him. And like other players play worse without him. Like
Yeah,
he really does hold a lot together. It's just like if the Pacers were looking to upgrade, unfortunately, he's the guy whose spot is at risk. So love me some Neesmith. Very happy they were able to get an extension done. Like, that's the type of player, though, that, like, does have value around the league. He
yeah.
definitely does, because any team would look at his salary and say, "Yep, that's a really good salary for what he brings to the table," and maybe he's playing a lesser role on some other teams, but he's playing that lesser role at, like, almost like an elite type of level.
Yeah, for sure. So that was part 4 of the mailbag, talking about draft assets, trade targets, and future planning. And then we're going to close things out here on Friday with part 5. We're going to talk about the current roster development. And then we got a fun question. A couple of them. The last question is going to make me sick that we have to even talk about it, but we'll just tease it with that. So, Pacer Nation, hope you guys enjoyed part 4 of the mailbag as we kind of just went all over the place and kind of created some of our own mailbag questions. And Facci, if you're looking forward to the last episode tomorrow, hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go Pacers.